Good afternoon. I'm Monisa Klein here at GBTA Broadcast Studio in Orlando, Florida. We're here at the 2021 convention, and it's great to be here. And with us today, we have Mr. George Kalka, who is the Vice President for Business Travel for Fox World Travel. Welcome, George.
Thank you. It is wonderful to be here.
Breaking news.
It is.
So when did you get in?
I arrived on Tuesday.
Good.
Yes,
Are you guys having a good conference so far?
We are having a nice conference. It is so wonderful to see people together again.
It is.
It's been great to be here.
It is. I think everybody feels that, and that's really clear that people are just happy to be meeting in person again, right?
Yes, you just can't build that connection unless you're in person.
You can't. So speaking of connections, what are the new considerations, what new considerations do organizations need to address in today's business travel environment? And how is a geographically dispersed and remote workforce impacting travel management?
You know, this is something where more companies are open to remote workers. You can really work from anywhere, and it causes new considerations for especially travel managers to keep in mind. What we find isn't necessarily the travel manager's role to manage this portion, but keeping HR informed, providing information to necessary stakeholders, because as employees work in other locations, there's tax and payroll considerations.
Right.
There are workers' compensation considerations and other things that feel very carefree to a traveler. I just want to tack on a few days to my trip, or if I'm going to from Orlando to Houston every other week and now I start adding personal time to my trip, I might be considered an employee in that state. Or you might have to pay payroll tax in that state. So finding new considerations around having a geographic workforce that travel managers can have a role in playing. And we find ourselves as a travel management company helping enable those conversations, ensuring that they're aware and they can ask the right questions within their organization so they can take the information that they need to make that happen. I think the other portion of having a remote workforce is consideration about how often do you bring those travelers into your location now. And they're not even really business travelers, they're employees who happen to work remotely. So it's a new type of business traveler, one that isn't necessarily experienced on the road all the time.
Right.
They have just found themselves in a location that is away from their office. So now they have to come in, and frequency, cost considerations around that, and also just ensuring that they're prepared and what to expect when they do so. So there's a new generation of traveler out there that we're just seeing emerge because of how people are working now.
That's interesting. So that's one of the, I guess, downline effects from the pandemic, right? Of how the world has evolved and changed and how things are going to look differently going forward.
It is. I don't think we would have experienced it at this rate had the pandemic not happened.
Right.
But it's a great opportunity for travel management to consider that and build new policies around it and ensure that they're playing a strategic role.
Excellent. Sounds like you guys are ahead of the curve there. So
we stay close to our customers. They ask us a lot of questions, and we find really what's on their mind and hot topic.
That's great. So you've been an advocate calling for greater support for travelers with physical and neuro health conditions. Why is that important, and what can corporate travel programs do to improve the experience?
It is something that's near and dear to me. My father was in a wheelchair for most of his life, and while he wasn't a business traveler per se, we took family vacations. And he was in the business world, so I saw the struggles and challenges that he had in that scenario. This started with a global leadership professional project that I was a part of a couple of years ago, and it was a topic that was pitched. And the team that worked on that, I just coalesced around that because of the personal connection that I had, but then identifying that corporate travel is designed to have policy, and it's designed to have control. And travelers with a physical or neuro disability, essentially, they are sometimes met with red tape. They're met with obstacles and challenges that they have to overcome just by nature of being a business traveler in the organization. We as an industry and as travel management don't make it easy for someone to get through a policy exception, let's say. So an example we like to use is the ADA requires one room of every 100 to be handicap accessible, or with a roll-in shower. Now, that's 1 in a 100 chance of a traveler receiving that if they need it. And if that hotel happens to be sold out, does that traveler get to choose somewhere else, or must they use the company preferred hotel? And if they are granted that exception, how easy is it? Are they met with policy exceptions that need to be made, approval processes that they need to go through, or are they met with a very defined program that shows that there's care for that traveler? And we've thought about that scenario. And there are thousands of scenarios that could occur like that. And I think it's important for us to talk about that as an industry,
right.
Bring more awareness to it, because it's going to take all of us coming together from a supplier standpoint and corporations to set the right policies. And then of course for suppliers to be working with that type of traveler that has that need.
Wow. And you having that personal experience, it just makes you that much more passionate about the issue, right?
It is.
And we're lucky to have that you're working on that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. As that topic came up, it was something you just very clearly you could see was a need in our industry, and something that not everyone's equipped to manage through.
Yeah.
And we just need to talk about it so there's more tools and resources for everyone.
Great. Thanks for sharing that.
You bet.
So what trends are you seeing with pre-trip approval and the impact on corporate travel?
So we are seeing more pre-trip approval from an internal standpoint before it even comes to a travel management company. Because there's so many layers of involvement from an HR, health, risk, even just the business need that this traveler might be going on, that companies are looking to manage that before it comes to the point of sale with the TMC. We've had a lot of customers come to us and ask, how can we manage that through alternate technologies and systems, like a Microsoft Flow, for example, which is an internal business technology that they use that can help facilitate that approval process that they need. So we've seen more companies want to take that in internally. When you hear a lot about, is the approval process in place? It absolutely is. Not necessarily as it used to be with TMC and point of sale, but more so even before it gets to that point that they have those checks and balances and have gone through the proper approval process. We've also seen a tightening of it where it went up an executive level. We've seen that come back down now as more companies have restarted travel. More travelers have been comfortable with it.
Another interruption.
Yes.
Okay. We're used to it, right, in the travel industry,
used to it,
right?
yes.
Disruptor.
We'll gladly be here and take the interruption.
Anyways, go ahead.
So I think just to close out on that topic, more companies are looking at it from a business process standpoint within their organization rather than the traditional trip approval that we've seen in the past.
Interesting. And do you think there's a lot more pre-trip approval on the, you said before it gets to the TMC? I'm assuming it's because people are just not quite sure if they should be traveling. There's a lot of hesitancy, right, about whether or not they should be taking the trip, or can I take the trip? So there's a lot more upfront, I guess, eyes on it, right?
Exactly, exactly. And even in the, the first topic we were speaking about with a remote workforce, just to know that that associate is taking a few extra days on their trip, or where they might be, because if they hit a certain number of days in a state, you may need to take a different consideration and report that differently. So even the approval process helps with that, because you may want to avoid that trip or send to a different location rather than having to manage through the other processes.
Right. Well, George, lots of good things happening at World Fox Travel.
Yes.
And I mean, it sounds like a lot of good things that you guys are working on, a lot of exciting things. Hopefully you're seeing an uptick in business and a lot of optimism going forward, right?
Yes, there's a lot of momentum, and I think we're feeling it here as well.
Absolutely. Would you like to say anything to our audience as we close out here?
I think thanks for supporting business travel, and it is so wonderful to be back together with people here, and I think this is just really the start. So special thanks to GBTA as well for putting together a successful convention and bringing our industry back together again.
Thank you, George, for being with us today. It's great to see you, and all the best for the rest of convention.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. We're here at the GBTA broadcast studio here in Orlando, Florida. Stay tuned for more.